Here we go again, folks. The abuse continues. The unending, indirect economic and environmental war waged by the bourgeois dictatorship and the United States military physically upon the Hawaiian Islands, her working poor citizenry, and her Aboriginal Kanaka populace continues. On November 28th, reports were produced from the residents living in the vicinity of the Pearl Harbor Naval Base, and they reported such symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches, and skin-related concerns as a direct byproduct of the Red Hill Underground Fuel Storage Facility, a holding facility built more than 70 years ago during the Second World War, which can hold upwards to more than 250 million gallons worth of refined diesel petroleum leaking into the Red Hill aquifer. The Red Hill aquifer is the primary freshwater source that serves Leeward Oahu, or in layman's terms, everyone living between Ewa Beach to East Honolulu, impacting close to 600,000 people. Or to put it more bluntly, with a population of 1.4 million living throughout the 8 islands that comprise of the unlawfully occupied Hawaiian Kingdom, quite literally almost half of the population. The test's results showed that hydrocarbons associated with diesel fuel were detected at 350 times the level the health department considers safe. Officials collected the samples on Sunday, December 5th. A California lab found 140,000 parts per billion of total petroleum hydrocarbons as diesel within the water sample. The Department of Health environmental action level is 400 parts per billion. In an absolute worst-case scenario, the Red Hill aquifer could be perhaps contaminated and unusable for decades. Yes, one of the very few sources of fresh, potable water that is smack dab in the middle of the Pacific Ocean in one of the most isolated regions in the world is tainted by gasoline. For years, residents have been raising the alarm about the Red Hill fuel storage facility potentially leaking into the aquifer, putting Honolulu and most of Oahu at risk. And for those of you who know or may not know, I have been too. Even as a New York City tour guide, indirectly speaking, bringing up the USS Arizona on my tour, as the doomed ship was built in the Brooklyn Naval Yard, I have often communicated to tourists visiting New York that the United States Navy needs to clean up Pearl Harbor and reconfigure their outdated infrastructure in the event that petroleum should leak into the underground aquifer. And so it has finally come to pass, despite all warnings. And yet again, another harmful injury has been levied, and another collective shrug displayed by the officials affiliated with the illegitimate and parasitical state apparatus and the military that presently occupies Hawaii. Go figure that the supposed most powerful military in the world wasn't powerful enough to prevent such an unfathomable episode from occurring, nor would the military actively respond to this ticking time bomb until their own started to report illness. Which is a dark twist of some ironic karma, if you ask me. None of this is new. As I have alluded to earlier, there has been a long history of abuse deliberately directed toward the hypersensitive environment of Hawaii by both the illegitimate state government and the military. Let me state some cases here. In 1965, Operation Sailor Hat was a series of 3 test explosions on the island of Kahulave, where 500-ton TNT explosive charges were detonated on the southern tip of the island. This was during the Cold War. Go figure. From 1941 to 1990, a huge quantity of artillery bombs, missiles, and torpedoes were also fired into the island of Kahulave, effectively cracking its water table, with all fresh water on the island leaking into the Pacific and exterminating all flora and fauna on the island. During the Vietnam War, Agent Orange was secretly tested in Hawaii in a joint program between the military and the University of Hawaii's Agricultural Department. 2 University of Hawaii employees were drenched with Agent Orange while they guided aerial spraying of the agent over the rain forests of Kauai to test the chemical. Those 2 University of Hawaii employees died not long after those experiments were conducted. In August and September 1965, a test named Fearless Johnny was carried out by the military southwest of Honolulu using VX nerve agents and a stimulant to evaluate the magnitude of exterior and interior contamination levels. Isn't that a load of malarkey? In April and May 1967, in an experiment named Red Oak Phase 1, the U.S. Army detonated 155mm artillery shells and 115mm rocket warheads filled with deadly sarin gas in the dense forests of the Upper Waikea Forest Reserve on Mokuo Keawe, also known as Hawaii Island. Annually, the United States Navy conducts sonar technology operations off of Hawaii's waters with ear-piercing sonic waves that eclipse 200 decibels, which induces deafness and brain hemorrhaging within aquatic mammalian life, and has resulted in countless of dead dolphins and dead whales washing up on Hawaii's shores. Despite the numerous civil petitions and requests from environmental preservationists, biomarine scientists, and the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, the military persists in ignoring these requests and continues to conduct harmful experiments that kill off aquatic life with impunity. Keaukaha, Hawaiian homestead, to clarify, these are lands set aside by the illegitimate state government, that of which Kanaka Maoli individuals are entitled to by providing the illegitimate state government a blood quantum test that is at least 50% Aboriginal Polynesian, established in 1924, over the years was intruded upon by infrastructure related to toxic release facilities such as Hilo International Airport, Hilo Harbor, the municipality's landfill, the municipality's sewage plant, a petroleum tank farms, and a petroleum-fueled Hawaii Electric Light Company power plant. I can personally attest that this is indeed no exaggeration or fabrication, as I'm going to name some names here. Kainoa Bagado invited me over to her residency, which is the neighborhood in question, last time I was in Mokuo Keawe, and I personally witnessed all of this. She would later tell me that many of her neighbors have died over the years due to cancer, and very few people outside of Hawaii know about this, and tourists who visit are blind to this, even though it's right in front of them. While this is not explicitly military-related, this is a product of abhorrent urban planning and zoning on behalf of the Hawaii Islands county seat, and to say that this planning was deliberate and not incidental is viewed as a conspiracy theory. From October 17th to November 2nd, 1945, 20 M79 1,000-pound hydrogen cyanide bombs, 1,100 M79 1,000-pound cyanogen chloride bombs, 125 M78 500-pound cyanogen chloride bombs, 14,956 M70 114-pound mustard bombs, and 30,917 4.2-inch mortar mustard shells were dumped off the coast of Waianae. Additionally, the Army discovered depleted uranium spotting rounds at Schofield Barracks, also in the Waianae mountain range, at the firing range in 2005. In the 1960s, the firing range was at the Schofield Barracks was used for testing out the Davy Crockett, a low-grade nuclear weapon, although the military has denied usage of live warheads. The majority Kanaka population that resides within Waianae to this day endures through a plethora of health issues relative to disproportionately high rates of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, cerebrovascular disease, cancers, diabetes, obstructive lung diseases, asthma, bronchitis, emphysema, chronic kidney disease, metabolic syndrome, obesity, along with the highest rates of diabetes among ethnic subgroups on all the islands. That is what happens when deliberately orchestrated environmental degradation by Wall Street's hired class of mercenary thugs called the United States military intersects with both economic warfare and public health. Mind you, half of the public drinking water that the residents of Waianae depend on and also consume comes from the Red Hill aquifer. By the way, the last time I was in Waianae was in early 2019. I was up on Mauna Ka'ala cleaning out the Loe, and I'm going to mention a few more names here, with Kaukaohu Walhilani, his family, Kahala Fung, Dr. Kalani Young, and others. Military helicopters were flying overhead and loud explosion sounds were heard in the distance. It's still going on. The war on the Aina's environment, as I mentioned before, continues to this very day, in broad daylight, in plain sight, and tourists just mill on by, stupefied by the visually marvelous aesthetic of the Hawaiian Islands, but with no attention paid whatsoever to its suffering citizenry, who are being forcibly removed by gentrification and who are also being slowly poisoned to death if they do not leave. While it is true that deliberate environmental disregard anywhere is inherently backward, to the Kanaka Moli in Hawaii, environmental disregard is not only backward, but akin to religious sacrilege. Everything, every element, every plant, every rock, every animal, yes, even the centipedes, every grain of sand, every lava flow, every natural element about the Hawaiian Islands is sacred to Kanaka Moli. But what is more sacred than anything else is the Aina, the land itself, and the Wai, which is fresh water, folks. And both have been under attack every single day since Queen Liliuokalani was forced off her throne at gunpoint by the United States Marines in January 1893. Of course, fingers will be pointed everywhere. That's what they always do. You know, the media will distort the story and fingers are pointed, I know. And polarization happens, I know. The reactionaries on the islands will blame the Democrats, which to a certain extent, they are correct. The Democratic Party, for those of you who are not familiar with the Hawaiian Democratic Party, they more or less practice what I call a form of modern-day Thatcherism with intersectional characteristics. You know. And then you have the activists and the professional class academic sorts saying, well, this is a byproduct of 19th century colonial settlerism, and that is true. That is true, but they do not explicitly state what the real problem is, and that is state-sponsored austerity. State-sponsored austerity. Yes, economic warfare. So you see, here's the thing. When it comes to state government affairs in Hawaii, I'll just put it out in this way. You know, they're a little slow to act relative to public inquiries, but with private inquiries, oh, they're very quick to act. They got no problem doling out billions to private contractors, erecting the monstrosity that is the Honolulu Rail, which after a decade of construction is still not finished and continues to increase in its costs. they have no problem, the state government anyway, has no problem doling out billions to the University of Hawaii, who in tandem with other universities keep attempting to build an unwanted telescope on top of Mauna Kea, nor do they have a problem doling out additional capital to the police and National Guard, who keep arresting the people who are fighting to keep the telescope off of their INA. They have no problem doling out capital in the form of, economic subsidies and kickbacks to companies like Walmart and Amazon and Whole Foods. Well, that's part of Amazon as well. Starbucks, chain killing, local chain killing businesses. They got no problem doling out money to them. They also have no problem doling out billions when it comes to real estate developers who build unwanted expensive luxury condo after unwanted expensive luxury condo, unwanted tourism resort after unwanted tourism resort, unwanted golf course after unwanted golf course, all of which cooks real estate prices and directly contributes to the increased costs of living. It's not the taxes, Republicans. It's the real estate interests. But when the roads need paving, that can wait, says the state. When the drainage pipes need reconfiguring, that can wait, says the state. When the public schools, where their facades are literally crumbling, need to be upgraded, that can wait, says the state. When the public bus service needs to be expanded, that can wait, says the state. When permits are needed for locally controlled farms to increase agricultural production, to develop locally controlled productive forces and a locally controlled food supply, well, guess what? That can wait, says the state. When there are demands for state action to clean up toxic waste dumps around Hawaiian homelands so Kanakas can stop, dying from cancer, that can wait, says the state. When there is a demand for state action to have an antiquated fuel storage facility upgraded or removed outright so it doesn't contaminate one of the few sources of fresh potable water and potentially poisons millions of people, both locals and tourists alike, guess what? That can wait, says the state. The illegitimate state government of Hawaii, both Democrats and Republicans, does not care to maintain the public commons of Hawaii because they do not care for its citizenry. They work to allow private interests to monopolize the islands and would dare push every poor and working class person, especially if they're Kanaka, into the ocean if they were legally permitted to do so. That is the reality. Over the years, I have distanced myself from the Aloha Aina struggle because I had a medically documented manic episode in late 2019, which has, caused me to alienate a lot of allies and comrades. I was not acting right in the head, to tell you the truth, which I am deeply sorry for and I do regret very much. However, I have paid attention to what has been going on while I have rehabilitated myself post-episode. The atrocities that Hawaiians endure through every day via class war and environmental warfare were unacceptable then, and they continue to remain unacceptable. And despite all these atrocities, despite the propaganda and the prostitution of their culture, despite economic and environmental war crimes levied upon them every single day, Kanakas and their allies have shown nothing but aloha, restraint, and have consistently opted to turn the other cheek when they have every God-given right to hand out cracks that will last for 1,000 years. While Thomas Paine is one of my main influences, and while I agree with the ideological premise of the American colonies overthrowing the British monarchy, and very much believe that the British monarchy and all European monarchies and their associated aristocracy should be abolished outright, people would do well to understand that my loyalty does not lie with the United States government. Ironically, even as a proponent of classical republicanism with socialist characteristics, there's that James Connolly influence, my loyalty lies with the Hawaiian Kingdom, which has been under siege for the past 128 years. My sentiments are with the embattled people of the Aina and the complete and total eviction of the United States military and the complete and total eviction of the 1% capitalist class out of Hawaii by any means necessary, whether passively or subversively. The time for niceties and diplomatic negotiations is over. The people of Hawaii got to start cracking a few of those eggs. If they want to eat, if they want to drink, if they want everything that they have been deprived of, including a healthy life. Take those kid gloves off and fight like your existence depends on it, because your existence does. You may feel alone out there in the Pacific, but you have more comrades and allies than you know, and we will offer whatever aid and support we can offer. God save the Aina, God save the Wai, and God save the Hawaiian Kingdom. This is Comrade Pella, signing out.